Grog.
Hey everyone, it's the Cider Shed podcast with me, Peter Fickling, and Keri and Matthew. This week we saw Brian and Jenny have to confront the truth, and it was a long time coming, and it was quite sad. And it reminded me that we owe our friends, our closest ones, honesty as well as love. And Keri Warbis has been a rock for me and Matthew over the last however many months. She's the reason that Matthew and I know each other and have become friends. And so it was with a mixture of shock and sadness that I had to listen to this clip that Matthew sent in.
It scratched an itch, and I won't be doing an all-nighter for another good few months.
And I won't be doing an all-nighter. And I won't be doing an all-nighter. And I won't be doing it.
Keri, you seem to think this is funny.
I do. Oh, that is so good. I love the sort of bit at the end. Yes, I lied to you. I lied to myself. I didn't know I was lying at the time.
I blame Hall & Oates.
Yes, they've got a lot to answer for.
They're part of this too.
They are. Look, spontaneity happens, guys. What can I say?
But I went to bed on Friday night and there was a message on Twitter from Keri saying, and I'm home from the pub and had a lovely evening, night. And then I woke up and it's like, Hall & Oates this, dancing in the kitchen. Who was this with? Was this the kids, Keri?
No. I went out.
Oh, you Alistair Calvin home.
Yeah.
Surprised your poor daughter.
Absolutely.
With you absolutely shit-faced in the kitchen, yeah.
They weren't called Calvin, they were called Dean. But no, I went out with my work colleagues, my team, the people who I manage on the Friday to the local pub, the Dover Castle again.
Was this the evening? On Friday evenings, I have to get up for work on Saturday. And I think I was quite jealous. I think I saw about midnight when I was kind of turning in that you just cracked on Brass Eye.
Well, it's an eclectic experience at the Warbis Towers.
Well, it's good to know, even when you're absolutely hammered, you've got immaculate taste. Well, that's, and yet we're doing a podcast about the Archers. Talking of uncomfortable gatherings around the kitchen table, I'm immediately thinking about Uncle Adam and his kind and thoughtful words to his, obviously unperturbed and very confident nephew.
Yes, this was fascinating to me for many reasons, one of which was that Ian came out of it very, very well. He was the voice of reason when Adam was saying, "How could I have missed it, Ian?" And Adam was kind of just saying, well, I just overheard a phone call. It's nothing, no biggie. I'm sure he'll come out to us, he'll tell us about it when he's ready. But no, Adam had to say, I know exactly how to handle this.
Yeah, it was one of those things where he just, where someone just isn't listening. And they're just, it's a very soapy thing, isn't it? Where someone is trying to give them advice and the other person just has tunnel vision. Because, like you said, Ian was being voice of reason. And he was like, he'll keep putting it off. Yeah. It's our duty. It's like, and Ian was just like, well, you could just let him carry on flirting with Troy.
Was it polytunnel vision?
Oh, end the pod now.
But also, it was weird because he'd literally just moved in, hadn't he? He was unpacking his stuff, and Adam was pissed off about that. He was like, have you seen the number of cases that he's bringing? He said he was only bringing a couple of things or something. So he went from being annoyed and Ian talking him down from that.
Well, so Adam, and what would Adam pack? Like 5 identical boiler suits and a frame picture of himself, and that'll be it.
And every spreadsheet he's printed off for the last 20 years in a box.
Yeah. Yes, but poor Rory, he just moved in, was sorting his room out, had some dinner. It sounded like they were washing up or something. There were plates and cutlery happening, weren't there, after? It was a post-prandial pep talk. And he just suddenly launched in with this very creepy voice. I wouldn't want you to think you can't be yourself.
Well, that's the thing, though, isn't it? You had Rory with zero emotional baggage, but car upon carload of real life baggage, and Adam was obviously the flip side. He was projecting all of his difficulties from early life onto Rory, and I did feel. I mean, obviously, it was crashing. It was written. I guess it was written well in that it was very Adam. if that makes sense. If you're writing for Adam, he has to be true to the Adam we know. So that was, tick, goal achieved. But I did sympathise for the fact that, growing up to some extent in London in the early 90s, someone's sexuality really didn't feel like a big deal or something relevant, especially given the job I did back then. So I can, you have to be a bit more sympathetic to, some of the why do all these people move to London or move to Brighton? Because they've had an absolutely rotten time in the Ambridges and Ketterings and wherever else is.
For Ian, it was Antrim, wasn't it? I mean, Adam said, think of there must be, legions of boys in Antrim going through what you went through.
It's funny because when I wrote down a lot of what Adam said, and when you see it written on the page in my beautiful handwriting, it all looks perfectly fantastic and supportive and well done. You're really trying to accommodate and support this person. When Adam says it, it just sounded very, very peculiar. And so it's a shame, really, because he was trying to do the right thing. And Rory's response to it was so beautiful and like shrugging the shoulders and going, well, no, I'm not actually gay. I'm bisexual, not in the closet. I never have been. He did actually thank Adam, didn't he, for saying and said, because of you, I'm not the first queer person around here. There was a bit of controversy on Twitter about the use of that term. And I can't actually speak to that because I don't know enough about why that's bad or why it isn't bad, really.
One of the persons I saw commenting said about how they felt it was an imported American term, and I think that you have to accept that American is the lingua franca within the different English dialects. Like if you're talking about, like they lead the way completely on issues around sort of like terminology to do with sexuality, to do with heritage. Whether you like that or not is a different thing. So, for instance, when I moved to America, I remember sitting in a meeting and I used the phrase Chinese whispers, and everyone at the table, including several of my Asian colleagues, stared at me like I was an absolute giant Trumpian freak. And then I said very honestly, oh God, I can see I've offended everyone. What is the equivalent? And apparently it's the telephone game. But that's a very clumsy example because obviously Chinese whispers isn't very old. But I hadn't even considered it was a racist term. It only takes half a second of thinking. But the point is, sorry, getting back to the topic, I don't want to tell people to not be offended, but I think America leads the way.
I liked how Rory said about Troy as well, that we're mates who go a bit further sometimes. It was just really off the cuff, casual. No one's getting, upset about this. It's all good. I mean, Adam wasn't to know that.
It felt to me like an inverted parent-teenager conversation. I know that's not the dynamic between the two of them. But when you try to discuss something with a teenage kid and they just give monosyllabic answers, except it was moving in the positive way, wasn't it? Because Adam was there going, you can really relax around here. And he's like, okay, there's no pretense. Fine. Then it was just, we can get to know each other, talk about anything. I was just waiting for Rory to say, like, I don't know, some controversial farming idea like, let's bring loads more lambs onto the field. And Adam totally loses his shit.
Yeah.
If you look at the back of the fridge, Rory, you'll see our relaxing schedule. We wake up at 8. We start to lightly relax at 8:15. We fully relax by 10.
It was a little bit, because it was this idea that he's a little bit untidy as a teenager, and that kind of, it was a half-handed segue into this fact. Well, you can totally be yourself around here.
Yeah, when Adam did a really tremendous, hey, we are who we are.
Yeah, that was like the cool uncle thing, wasn't it? And again, I know that's not quite the dynamic, but like, hey, man, that's fine. It's like the uncle that lets you drink a beer in the shed and doesn't tell your dad.
No, I never had that uncle, unfortunately.
Or lets his sister drink in the office and doesn't tell the dad.
That's a conversation for another day if it ever becomes relevant. But yeah, how did Adam not spot Alice's drinking?
They did mention her, didn't they, a bit? And Adam sort of really in passing sort of went, God, I feel so bad for her. Anyway, and then carried on talking. It didn't seem to be something he's giving too much thought to.
Do you think that might have just been intentional because they were trying to save up to the Thursday episode as a real sucker punch. We'd been sort of like, lulled into a false sense of security with Jazza and Tracy's sat by the side of the road, Mia's, Mia being lovelorn, all of that stuff going on, the WhatsApp group stuff. And then, there it was at the end of the week, bam, straight between the eyes.
Yeah, it would have been better if you hadn't mentioned it at all, instead of just going, oh yeah, I'm a bit worried about her. Anyway, let's, what are we having for dinner?
I think you could go both ways. I quite appreciated the fact they didn't avoid the elephant in the room. It would be weird if you've got family members having a catch up and it wasn't just at least kind of like ticked off as something said, or I don't know.
When we got into today's episode, I did feel that maybe we as the listener hadn't heard the end of Rory and Mia's conversation, and she was going to tell Will that he was bi, and that didn't happen, but I kind of thought that was going to happen today.
Well, but before today's episode, I had a bit of a worry that they were going to do a Mia the homophobe. Mia spurned by Rory, it then becomes vengeful and uses his sexuality as a kind of stick to beat him with. That was my.
I was more worried that Will was going to do that today. But I've got to say, Will is not a very loved character. But I thought he was brilliant today. I thought he was great.
Can you two tell me about that? Because I zoned out and everyone was going, Will was amazing. I was doing the tweet along, and sometimes when I'm doing that, I miss bits. So can you two tell me, how was Will nice?
I just thought that it was the way that he... first of all right, very natural thing to notice that Mia was upset. And it was that typical thing, Mia's, you wouldn't get it, I'm off to my room or whatever. And then they bounced around wherever else they went. We'll talk about it later. And he was just the real arm round the shoulder. And as Adam, whereas Adam and Ian had this whole conversation with Rory, I thought what happened between Mia and Will about having her heart broken, I thought that was really, really touching, because she asked, is that how you felt when Mum died? And he said, no, that's a completely different type of heartbreak.
Okay.
He said, then what you're going through is something that everyone has to go through. It's just part of life. And that kind of brought her around, saying it's rubbish. And then he gave her this anecdote about how he fancied the girl in the older year, bought her the Valentine's card, chickened out, couldn't give it to her. But yeah, he's some of the things he said today I thought were really lovely to her, and then he said, like, and you're going to save the world, you're going to save the world as well, which I thought was pretty cute that he threw it in. So yeah, I thought he was great today.
Will is obviously a faulty man. We've had a ringside seat for that for years. But the one thing you can't accuse him of is being so disingenuous or two-faced or lacking honesty. And he'll always give people, the truth, and that's obviously to his detriment most of the time. But I think it shows the strength when the strength of it when he's confronted by someone who's upset. He doesn't dodge the issue. He got in there and got his hands dirty, so to speak.
There was a good tweet by @Winston Texas that I saw, and he said, or she said actually, I'm disappointed to have not found a single fault in how he handled it, apart from his creepy voice, of course.
But do you think with Adam and Ian, the actors are both consistent? They do a great job at making them, like I said earlier on, Adam's very Adam. He's always consistently Adam. So whatever you feel about him, you get portions of that again and again. Will, the same thing. The actor who plays Will really fills out the role. You don't see any of the cracks where the acting doesn't show through very often.
I don't know. There are points where Will does that sort of slightly sort of whispering voice and does sound a little bit. Ooh.
I will not hear anything said against Bob Harris. That man is a legend. So Will did a good job, right? But maybe how did Emma and Eddie do? Obviously, Eddie just squirmed out of it, but Emma had a crack at trying to sort of steer Mia in the right direction.
Yeah, I thought Emma did a really good job. She was trying to manage expectations, wasn't she? And I think Mia, I did highlight with my highlighter pen in that bright yellow colour, that Mia doesn't listen. Not only does she not listen to Emma, but she doesn't listen when she's doing her eco warrior stuff either. She's very good at spouting what should be happening around the farm. But things like Eddie said, well, there's a cost to recycling all of those things that you keep pointing at. It's not quite as simple as you're saying. But Mia doesn't acknowledge it, doesn't respond, and then carries on going, anyway, I've made an Instagram account of loads of tortured animals. And it was the same with,
Giving them all
you're going to
names.
upset some people, says Emma. Regardless, she's going to do it. And I thought it was, the two not listening situations were there about the eco warrior stuff, and he's not that into you.
Yeah, I thought the bit about, particularly with me and Emma, when this whole thing about she wasn't listening, she wasn't paying attention, and the fact that Emma was really trying to usher Mia away from Rory in that first scene in episode 2. Just like, anyway, got to get going. Clary will have dinner ready, etc. There seemed to be there were two things there that I thought were going on. Just Emma was mindful of the fact that she is persona non grata with the Aldridge clan right now. And also I felt that later when Mia was on a roll, like you said, and she wouldn't stop, I thought Emma was maybe seeing a bit of herself post her dad telling her, just stop and listen every now and again without just flying in. And I thought there was a little bit of that she was employing a little bit of what her dad had used when
very good, Matthew.
I thought there was that going on. That was the dynamic, I thought.
That did not occur to me at all at the time, but I think you're right. Yeah.
And there's been another incident this week where there was one person trying to usher one person away from another, but I felt that in the end she was like, but then, it did go to this whole thing about it's not just a crush, I'm in love with him, and Emma was kind of realising the gravity of it all then. But I think early on that was what they were trying to carry over from last week.
Are we saying that Alice was not in love with Calvin? Is that what we're saying?
That actually wasn't who I was talking about. I was talking about Helen trying to kick Joy out after foolishly inviting her in.
God.
That has been something they've been doing recently, isn't it? There's always a compare and contrast. There's always, related but massively different scenarios going on in the different houses. So it's like, you've got the innocence of Mia as a kind of like a bleak contrast to Alice's dark horniness.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to keep that name for my first novel. The dark horniness. It's going to Stephen King meets Jilly Cooper.
I don't think it needs an article. Just be, how Justin Timberlake's character, he plays the person who invented Napster, and he turns around to whoever the guy who plays Mark Zuckerberg, and he says to him, by the way, drop just make it Facebook. So drop just make it dark horniness.
Well, we can work out the your fee for that later, Matthew. And I don't want you to be sort of like, I don't want to be sort of like haunted by you getting sued in 30 years' time when I'm on a book tour.
Well, if you edit it out, I know. You edit it out, I know you've screwed me.
I will be your witness.
Yes, that's Matthew. A good point. Well, with the whole Mia thing, and sorry to get sort of a little bit serious, with issues around heritage, with issues around sexuality, with issues, a lot of the other burning topics that are being raised sort of generally at the moment, and also on the Archers, there's so much history, there's so much baggage. It's very difficult to have a kind of binary right and wrong approach to things. And yes, Mia is being, as I think someone crudely put it, a kind of a wannabe Greta Thunberg. And I don't see anything wrong with that, but I think there was an implication she was getting a bit up herself. But there is right and wrong with the environmental issue. Like if as difficult as it is for someone like Eddie to have to reconcile the extra costs or to have to deal with the problems, I mean, there's only one way forward, right? We have to deal with it. And so I do think it's going to be a useful and interesting, assuming that the Archer still is this public service broadcasting that's supposed to educate us. I will enjoy seeing how some of these arguments play out. Sorry, was that too pretentious, or was it kind of soapbox, tolerable?
The thing about Mia is, of course, it's the best and rightest thing to do, but she's got a really annoying voice and doesn't shut the fuck up about it. So it's
yeah, all right, Hopkins.
but do you know what I mean? It's just God, every time she appears, hello, look at that plastic thing you're holding or is over there, or you've got to deal with that. And, and she really guilt tripped Eddie as well, saying, when she said, oh, so are you saying you don't really care about the future of all your kids and grandchildren or something because of that plastic pipe over there? I just think it's a shame again that such a very, very vital topic has to be brought down to this irritating, nagging girl all the time.
I was sad that Will kind of, in a sense, that Will calmed her down, because I thought she was going to go full dark side and just dig a landfill and start burning plastics into it whilst cackling.
Yeah.
If I can't have Rory, the planet won't.
Right, we just had to have a bit of a break because lovely Matthew had to go and help out an elderly neighbour of his. If only there was a WhatsApp group in your apartment building, Matthew, and then you wouldn't have had to leave your seat to be able to assist them. Are any of you guys on a neighbourhood WhatsApp group?
Well, my instinct was to say no, and then I realised I'm on about 3. But it's all very local.
Oh, is anyone brave enough to name the group names of their WhatsApp groups here?
If Keri started listing all hers, Desperate for a Shag 5, one part of a sequel, Drunk Every Night 6,
You mean Beautiful Princess of Brighton?
I'm sorry.
Dover Castle VIP Zone.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do have the name of my street WhatsApp group. It's very funny. And it was born out of the pandemic and people sort of who couldn't go out and, sharing stuff. There's a guy on my street who's always putting fat balls out on his doorstep for us to collect if we wish to go and have them in our garden.
Must not crack joke. If you had suddenly had a friend of limited intelligence who was, into Marvel figurines, would you invite him into the group as a matter of courtesy, or would you think,
any
let him just find it himself?
Into the street's vicinity were immediately invited into our street WhatsApp group. We take all comers because they're in the street. So God knows what's going on with the Lee Helen not being told. And also, by the way, why did Joy not have her phone on silent, or at least put it on silent after that bugle notification noise?
She's now part of the ringtone crime group, as far as I'm concerned.
Way back when, people were sort of obsessed is too strong a word. They were going on and on about the idea that Lee might be a black character, and that the writers had stealthed a black character into Ambridge, and they were going to quietly reveal it down the line, which I would have quite appreciated, but I think it was sort of generally agreed it probably wasn't the case. But anyway, I was starting to think about reasons that why wouldn't Joy want to have Lee on the group, and I thought to myself it could be something like he's got a different, he's not white, and there's a bit of racism or something like that on the group, and she was worried about that. I don't know. So I looked up the actor. The actor's white, and we know for certain they wouldn't have a white actor playing a black character. So that's out of the question. But what could possibly be the motivation?
Oh God, there are 2 possible motivations. One of which is the stabber lady has moved in. The other of which they're talking about on the WhatsApp group. The other of which is the drums being bloody annoying.
The stabber lady? Am I being stupid? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
I am being stupid. Okay. Well, that's it's not that unusual.
Well,
and what was the other
drums being really bloody annoying to the neighbourhood, because a kind, gorgeous, beautiful Joy said, "Oh, don't worry, I was dancing along to the rhythm whilst I was vacuuming." So if you can hear it over the bloody Henry...
Yeah, she said it was funky, didn't she?
Yeah, strange word.
Yeah, that's a very convenient word, isn't it? You can hide a lot in that one.
It's like having a jazzy top. It's what older people say, isn't it? Let's talk about Brian, who doesn't adhere to his marital vows, which was a bit of a rich take for him, really. I know I love him, but he said, "Remember your wedding vows," didn't he, to Alice? And she was like, "You dare lecture me about marriage vows." I don't know why he chose to die on that hill, really.
I mean, I just for the sake of this conversation, I am not going to try and make any sense out of Alice's behaviour. I don't have the energy. If you two want to go over that ground, then I'll happily listen. But I'm done with all of that for the time being. But it's this idea that just because she's drunk doesn't mean she's suddenly stupid and can't make a good point. Her lips have been loosened. She's she was obviously coherent. And sozzled but coherent. And Brian was playing with fire and he got his hands burnt. And she absolutely had him banged to rights. Maybe it's done him a massive favour because his little, it's actually brought him up to speed.
Yeah, he's kind of indefensible on that. I can't defend his idiocy in using that as a way to steer Alice, to be honest.
But he's been doing that for months and months, hasn't he? He's like, he'll go and talk to someone and he'll start. I mean, occasionally when he's talking to someone like Neil, he'll say things like, "Well, of course, I'm not in any position to sort of cast any stones when it comes to that regard." But when it's with his own family, you just think to yourself, "Come on, Brian, this, either fess up or shut up."
Yeah, he was doing okay when he was kind of saying, "You love each other. It's worth fighting for. You can save this." And then it just, why mention the bloody marriage vows?
Yeah, it's not a good ace in the hole for Brian, is it? I mean, it's like, I'm trying to think of a metaphor that you could have. I don't know. Uri Geller telling you're polishing your silverware wrong or something like that. Just it's just not a good idea. But she went really dark at the end, didn't she? When she was like, I'm rotten selfish and I drink and I'm just like you.
Yeah.
And I was,
yeah.
That was we've been talking for weeks about this kind of tipping point. When is it fine? Because Jennifer's got it. She's there, isn't she?
Yeah.
And Brian's just still fumbling around, like Alice trying to find her car keys in her bag. She can never find things with her hands, isn't it? They no, it's a bit an obvious thing to someone who's drunk, but her saying she couldn't find her keys.
It was a Bermuda Triangle, her handbag, wasn't it?
And then she couldn't. Now all we have to do is find the keyhole. It's not that hard. Like, I mean, I've been pretty hammered. And I've managed to work a chip and pin machine in a nightclub at 4 a.m. and buy a round of drinks that I don't even remember buying. I'm pretty sure I could get into my house.
Under my hair, I have a massive scar across the top of my head where I fell down 2 flights of stairs in my old flat when I was living on my own. And it happened the only 3 weeks, the only 3 months I think I stopped drinking in the whole of my 30s. So,
God.
I mean,
Really?
Well, because I made the mistake of being sober, Keri.
You fool!
My rhythms were completely sort of distorted. But I mean, I haven't had a drink in 15 months now, and it is amazing how much less you lose, how much less gets broken, how your plates and bowls stay matching even after 10, 12 months.
Oh, well done, Peter.
Oh, I know, I'm incredibly, so it makes my kind of sneering judgment of you at the front of the show, Keri, even more
Bring it on, love. I don't
vile
care.
and revolting.
It's fine.
Yeah, your contempt for your fellow podcaster is another one of your strengths.
I
Keri.
have no contempt.
Alice and Calvin seem to be like wandering back through the woods. The next thing they might happen to be at the front door. It felt a bit for Calvin and the chipmunks as she accidentally labelled him.
Yeah, I wonder which pub they'd met in, because it was like they'd only known each other 2 hours.
Do you think she'd been driving?
Which pub is it?
The equivalent to the Bull in Darrington.
But this idea that she just wanted company, and she doesn't feel that she can go and get that from her family, that's quite sad, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of Darrington, there was another strange name mentioned of a place near Ambridge, which I hadn't heard before or knowingly heard. Feldwich.
Oh, that's where they went on their... That's where Jazza took Tracy for a ride.
Yeah, that's where Eddie had to pick Jazza and Tracy up from, in the limo. Feldwich. And it meant that Eddie could get away from Mia and her interminable survey. But yeah, I've never heard of that place before.
No, me either.
Yeah.
I did.
It's not a crime, but
I did
I
feel
like these made-up names.
Yeah, I did feel a bit for Tracy. I mean, she wanted to be driven around Borchester, didn't she, in the limo? And there was no way that
Yeah.
Jazzer was getting in there because he was worried about his leather upholstery. And he wouldn't let him in the back.
Yeah.
But there is this,
Yeah.
when I was young, really young, if you saw a limo go past, you thought it was a famous person. Whereas now you just think like it's just it's a hen party, or it's a hen party, or it's like a bunch of kids who've just finished their GCSEs.
People are vomiting inside.
Yeah, there is no glamour attached to a limo anymore. And I thought it was quite cute how Tracy was like, "Oh, could you drive me around Borchester a few times?" She was going to absolutely love it.
Yeah, you say cute, but she's bloody getting on my nerves at the moment because her and Jazza just seem to be at loggerheads far too much. It's so aggy all the time.
Do you not think they're just trying to make sure that they seem like a kind of a long-term, more sort of stable couple?
How is that more stable? Like, just because, she wanted to get on the back of the motorbike for all I want was a sexy summer bike ride. The minute something doesn't go quite to plan, they're at each other's throats. It's always her being really vocally critical, and it's quite exhausting to listen to, I think.
Can you remember we've all been pillion passenger on a motorbike, right?
Nope.
Oh, no. I would never do that.
Okay.
Not in a million years. I was offered to go pillion on a World Superbike Champions motorbike, and I turned it down.
Because there was something that was very, very true about this. The first time you're on a bike,
the leaning
at
thing,
that speed, and the leaning is that the first thing, my dear friend Mouse, who's now a helicopter pilot in America, he told me, "You're going to have to lean when we go around corners, just like hang on to my waist and lean with me." If it was your first time on a bike, that was very true to form, that Tracy would have freaked out.
How fast is he going in order to lean around corners? Surely down country lanes, you wouldn't be going that fast and you wouldn't be leaning so much.
But it was all set up because she was sort of talking about what a sort of sexual thrill it was.
Oh, it's so sexy. Yeah.
Exactly. And he then said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll give you the ride of your life." Yeah. And then he was obviously
leaning.
He was obviously then trying to live up to the promise. Yeah, but the leaning thing. I mean, I've only been on a motorbike once, and it was a part of a magazine article. I will post it during the omnibus on Sunday. I won't bore you all with the story now. I'll just post the link and you can read it. But Keri, it's not that bad a story.
It's great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's pretty full on. But yeah, that's why I turned down the chance to be a pillion on a World Superbike Champions bike, because having ridden a bike myself, I was like, there's absolutely no way I'm trusting anyone else. It was kind of like the lesson was learned. I think Matthew's absolutely right. It is a leap of faith.
Oh, I've just thought, is this another metaphor for the leap of faith towards settling down and the leap of faith towards, them two being with each other?
Well, that was all covered off on Monday, wasn't it? I mean, sort of the start of that.
Yeah, it was. But I'm wondering whether is Tracy sort of like not so sure and not so trusting in the leap of faith of settling down as Jazza is, because Jazza was all for, when he was saying, I need to give my notice in on the shearing because, the days off I want to be spending with my girlfriend, I don't want to be, dealing with sheep instead.
As usual, you are, you're playing Star Trek 4-dimensional chess, and I'm, putting animal shapes into, 1-year-old jigsaws. I just don't see any of this stuff. I'm such a piglety, simple creature when I listen to the Archers.
Well, I didn't think of it until now. You've just talked about it, and I'm thinking, yeah, that is a kind of bit of a metaphor. Jazz is all sure about it, and he's leaning, and Tracy's like, oh, I don't know.
I just hope they work out. I think they're a fun couple. Obviously Tracy, obviously neither of them's going anywhere. I mean, it would be Nigel off the roof times 1,000 if either of them got, Haley'd or who are the, or if they got the carted out of there. Oh, God, I could have Matthewed that into a proper pun if I'd actually bothered to think about it. But if they'd been carted out of there, then there'd be uproar. So I'm hoping that they become a stable couple. I hope that you're wrong, and I hope this is just part of us being kind of like gradually shepherded into a more kind of
I
like,
just wish Tracy
humdrum
wouldn't
relationship.
get so aggravated so easily.
I'm not disagreeing with you, because I get what you're saying, but it doesn't. I feel like it's just a bickering couple. I feel like they're just one of those couples that there's always a little bit of needle, and that's part of the fun.
So when Susie Riddell is on our podcast later in June, we can ask her about it, can't we?
Oh, are we announcing that?
I don't see why not.
Okay, all right. Well, I was going to keep our powder dry about that, but
we can. I don't mind.
one of us rather arrogantly responded to Susie on Twitter purely as a sort of an act of outrageous chutzpah, and then somehow we've managed to wheagle her onto our little pod.
Yeah, and who better than Susie Riddell, who is Tracy Horrobin, one of our favourite characters. I think there aren't many people, if any, who don't adore Tracy as a character. And she's going to be on our podcast very, very soon. I can't wait to ask her about all things Tracy /Jazzer/Jim related, or anything, to be honest.
So any questions that you have, please send them in. I guess we haven't made our mind up yet whether to do the normal podcast or split it into two. Or anyway, so any ideas you have, ping them in. Any questions you have, send them in. It's hello@thecidershed.com. And yeah, it's very, very exciting. And actually, while I'm frothing with kind of I don't know who's a good person, kind of Philip Schofield like effervescence. We had another boon this week. So we had the fantastic news that Susie's coming on the podcast, and Keri brokered that and did amazingly. Thank you, Keri. And our PR genius, Matthew Weir, got up at bastard o'clock in the morning to go and be a Chelsea fan for hire. Was it for BBC 5 Live, Matthew?
It was for BBC 5 Live breakfast, yeah.
And yeah, we should post that as well, shouldn't we? We should maybe if Matthew sends me the audio, I'll put it on at the end of the pod. So I'll put that on as a little extra at the end. But Matthew, how did it go?
It went fine, yeah. I went down there. They were having, obviously it was the day before the Champions League final with Manchester City and Chelsea. Not sure how it ended. But it was me and a Manchester City fan being interviewed by Chris Warburton.
And did he take the time to ruthlessly plug his YouTube video?
The Man City fan?
Yeah.
No, he just got a tiny little intro. I just sent the producer a message and I said, I'll come down at 7:30 if I can plug the podcast about the Archers.
And plug you did. You were plugging away. It was like a hair transplant clinic. I mean, it was absolutely majestic work. My
friend who listened to the podcast said the plug was excellent. The other thing he liked was just how I completely reverted to footballing cliches the whole way through the interview. And it was like, I became possessed and all these things started coming out of my mouth, like a makeshift back four. And we've got playing them in their own backyard. I was like, where's this coming from?
I think you're being overly self-deprecating. I thought you came across very well. The proof is in the pudding. I guess we have
proof
to.
Of the pudding is in the eating.
There's something in the pudding is in the pudding, whatever's in the pudding. I think we've got some ridiculous percentage bump from Matthew's appearance on BBC 5 Live. So hello Chelsea fans, hello City fans. Well done on your fine clubs. I've never said a bad word about either of them. Neither is Matthew, neither is Keri.
I have.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a weird. Two very weird and very pleasurable things happened this week. So yeah, if our regular listeners do want to take a week off plugging duties, then this is the week to do it.
It was very strange. I was on the way home about 10 minutes later after the interview wrapped up, and a fellow Chelsea fan who I'm friends with on Facebook, who definitely doesn't listen to the Archers, just sent me a message saying, like, just heard you on Radio 5 Live. Great plug, mate. And I didn't, never in a million years. I mean, obviously it is Radio 5, so people are listening to it, but, it's just one of those moments where you think, oh, that actually went out. Okay.
You did so well because you told us you were going to be interviewed the next day, and we were like, oh, you won't be able to plug us. Don't worry. you were valiantly saying, "I will," and we were like, "Oh, don't worry, it's not going to be easy."
I didn't. I
And
had
then,
no expectations.
no, exactly. And then you said it twice.
Oh,
I
you were
don't know.
shameless. He was
Yeah, it was
absolutely
just
shameless.
hilarious.
The only thing I didn't get in was the socials. I really wanted to get the socials in, but
Oh my God.
But when I arrived, the producer said to me, "I'll try and flag it to Chris, but he might not bring it up on air." And I was towards the end of it, I was like, "He's not going to do it, is he?" But, yeah. Then he did. I was like, "Okay, here we go." I just tried to say it as
you were much more Alice than Mia in your seduction technique. You were very, very forward.
The only thing I didn't do was say "good morning" in Portuguese, which I wanted to do at the beginning, but I thought that might be a bit wanky.
Well, next time, Matthew. Next time.
Props to you, Matthew. You did very well.
Yeah. So like I said, I think we can take a week off the begging after all the success we've had. Hopefully, we've definitely got some exciting plans for the next couple of weeks. We're gonna finally produce a kind of raft of materials and also the method of delivery. So that'll be coming out over the next couple of weeks. We're still on Twitter at
the Cider Shed Pod,
and you can find Matthew on Facebook at
the Cider Shed Podcast Group.
And yeah, it's been a pleasurable show to do as always. It's been an amazing week. I mean, I nearly, sorry to repeat myself, I nearly had a heart attack when I was checking the statistics, and it looked like an anomaly. This kind of like giant phallus of extra listeners that kind of like bounced into the graph on the day after Matthew was on.
Extremely jubilant Chelsea fans, what I think it was.
Yeah, well, I'm now
Let's
Chelsea's
not
biggest
talk about
fan.
that.
Yeah, well,
No.
Keri, come on, professional lying. And I've really enjoyed today's show. Thank you from me.
Thank you from me, and see you next week.
Thank you from me. Bye.
Right, Matthew, Chelsea, your club, okay, kind of being positioned in this final, which is a rarity for Chelsea. It must be weird with all of the billions you've got available as the kind of plucky underdogs here against Manchester City in the final. A strange place to be.
It is, yeah. I've almost been trying to blank it out, and I've been realising now I'm going back to how I felt in 2012. I'm not thinking, because going to Bayern Munich Stadium, playing in their backyard with a makeshift back four, I didn't really give as much of a chance.
No one expected that.
I've almost entered the same mindset here. I'm not going to think about it until I get out of work on Saturday afternoon, and then I'm probably just going to lose my mind.
I suppose the trump card you got, Tuchel knows how to do Pep. He's done it twice.
Yeah, but has he done it too many times now?
Oh, right. He can't get a hat-trick. Okay. You want to quick mention of your podcast, because this is slightly bizarre.
Yeah, it's BBC related. I've got a podcast called The Cider Shed. Comes out every Sunday.
Yeah.
You can find us wherever you find your podcasts.
What's it about?
It's about the Archers.
The Archers.
Comes out on the coattails of the Archers every Sunday.
How about that, you
go
see?
and have a look for The Cider Shed.
Thought we're talking about Champions League, and we get on to the Archers here in Porto. I mean, it couldn't be more bizarre, could it? But right, Stephen, how's it going to go?